All right, everyone. So Rikishi had some really strong words for Goldberg. Here's what he said on his podcast. My speech wouldn't even be that long. I just say thank you for coming out. I'll see you next time, and then pull out the check for $2-3 million. That's it. That's what they got social media for. You can get on there and get on your own stories live, Facebook live, Twitter live. You could do all the time you want there. I mean, come on now, smarten up. You think WWE is going to pass up that sponsor money, TKO money? Is it really, really, or are we just going to wait for your however long speech? I don't know how long the speech was, but if they cut it within 30 seconds, well, damn, ain't that how long it takes for him to get up? So, look, it's interesting with the Goldberg situation because it's one of those things I kind of can see both sides being in the wrong. On one hand, the build for the retirement match should have been better. The I think ending of the match maybe should have been even a little bit better. And cutting Goldberg's speech was wrong. I understand there were things maybe they had to go because of Peacock and all of that, but if you knew that, then you should have made that clear and found a way for Goldberg to be able to do what he wanted to do. I understand it's hard, but that's part of the job, right? That's what WWE should do, especially honoring someone like Goldberg. And I don't care if he was mostly in WCW, right? Or if that's where he was at his biggest. WCW and WWE, I mean, WWE owned the library to WCW, right? Because they bought him out. They owned the competition, as Vince McMahon said, right? Bought the competition. So it's the same thing at this point, and and he deserved to be honored because he is one of the big names of that era. He's one of the few guys, right? One of the few wrestlers that can say, "I was on the top of a company that was beating WWE, beating WWE." So he deserved that. On the other hand, I think Goldberg is doing more damage by kind of how he's acted afterwards. And I'm not saying he shouldn't critique certain parts because I try to be optimistic about things and give the benefit of the doubt and just not just kind of. I feel like a lot of times in the media we're always very nitpicky and stuff like that, and I just want it to be, what, I'm happy to see Goldberg in the ring. He had a great career. Just kind of almost gloss over maybe any disappointment, but then once you go out there and you start kind of going at WWE in the way he was, right? And I mean, look, he wasn't saying mean things about Triple H or anything, but he was making it very clear that he wasn't happy with it and that he almost felt kind of disrespected by it because he said, "Would you do that for Austin and Undertaker?" And the answer to that, of course, would be no. Um, and so, that kind of makes it where I'm not going to be sitting here kind of defending the retirement match anymore if even Goldberg is like, I don't like it. But I just don't think it comes off as a good look. I don't think it's actually going to get him anywhere. And I think a lot of people kind of view it as now not only was maybe the retirement match from our perspective a little bit underwhelming, in terms of how the story was built and the ending to it, and then obviously Goldberg getting cut off. But now we know Goldberg's not happy with it, so it just creates this really bad taste in our mouth, and it makes the whole thing bad. Like nobody's looking back now on this match and saying this is great. And and then of course Rikishi, he has his thoughts on it as we just read. And I think Rikishi, I don't know if he's necessarily right with this. I do think Goldberg should have been able to do what he wanted to do. I do think that they shouldn't have cut off his speech halfway through. And what I mean by that is if they had to, because of whatever, right? Because, okay, this is how long we have. Well, they should have kind of understood going in that there's going to be these time constraints and to make sure that it doesn't bump into it because it was cut off pretty early. This wasn't like he was, 15 minutes into a speech and they cut it off. No, it was pretty early in the speech that he got cut off. And I do think I understand why Goldberg would be upset by that. But to me, it's deeper because everybody should have known that the build into this thing, right? How they constructed the whole match, it wasn't enough. There was one really good, I think, TV showing between Gunther and Goldberg, and it made me feel like, oh, maybe they actually did. Like Goldberg got a huge pop, right? More than his usual just from returning. It was a big pop for everything he was saying to Gunther, and I was like, okay, maybe this feud is going to be good enough for people. But then it just didn't. The match was fine, right? Actually, I think Goldberg gave a better than expected match considering his age. And the match was not the problem, but even the ending, I thought they could have got a little bit different with the ending. Could you have had some type of Seth Rollins cash in? And I know he ended up getting hurt, so that would have screwed it, but could there have been some type of cash in? Could there have been something like that? I just think if you had added that excitement to the end of the match, it would have made everything feel so much bigger. And it ended up, not really being the case. So I don't know how they fix this. I don't know if they will fix it. I don't know if Goldberg will have another match at some point. Like, I really don't know. I just kind of hate the fact that the end of a career like this, the last kind of thing we're going to remember now about it is that after the retirement match, Goldberg was, complaining about it. And some of the complaints are justified. I just think sometimes it's better to just say, you know what? I had this phenomenal career. I got another chance to get into the ring. I delivered this great match against a great young star, and I'm going to be happy with that. But we will see. So thank you all for watching. Put in the comment section below what you think here about Rikishi's comments, about what Goldberg has said. Who do you think's in the right? Who do you think's in the wrong? And we will see you next time.